Again, thank you for being here, especially as we close out this week and the 4th of July is coming just around the corner. So let us go ahead and get started. My name is Parker. I'm the Health and Wellbeing Specialist in Risk Services. And I have a master's in nutrition and health coaching. So this will be more on the side of health and things that we can do now that summer's here. So now that we have warmer weather, probably more towards the afternoon here in Santa Cruz, here are a few refreshers of summer safety that you probably already have heard of, and maybe some new things to keep in mind. So we'll talk about sun protection strategies. We'll go into what UV rays are specifically. Different tips for sunscreen, exercising in the sun, some first aid for sunburns and heat-related illnesses. We'll cover some of the different summer activities that we have outdoors and different summer foods to nourish you from the inside as well as outside. So let's get straight into it with talking about UV rays. Even though we are covered in clouds down here, we'll soon discover that is not 100% protective. So when we're outside doing summertime activities like swimming in the pool or hanging out at the beach, walking around town, the light from the sun has some direct benefits, absolutely, like giving plants energy for photosynthesis, vitamin D production in our skin. But sun also has UV rays, which is ultraviolet rays, and they come in 3 different wavelengths. Excessive UV exposure can influence DNA changes that might lead to harm, like skin cancers, premature aging of the skin. UVA is the longest wavelength of UV radiation from the sun, and it accounts for about 90% of the UV rays that reach here in the surface. This is the type of radiation that penetrates into the deeper layers of the skin. And so in that way, it's responsible for immediate tanning effects, premature skin aging, and wrinkling. The UVB radiation is the medium wavelength, and it penetrates the top layers of the skin. But it's the UVB rays that can cause DNA damage and may lead to the development of skin cancer and other conditions. UVB is what primarily contributes to sunburns, and it's responsible also for delayed skin tanning, and it can also contribute to skin aging. The final is UVC radiation, which maybe you haven't heard about, and although it is the shortest wavelength and more damaging type of radiation, it is filtered by the atmosphere. And so luckily it doesn't reach the Earth's surface, but that's maybe a lesser known fun fact. Maybe when you check the weather on your phone, you might have noticed that there's a UV index section, and that describes the day's UV levels in whatever location you're in. It's calculated by the US National Weather Service, as well as other worldwide weather agencies. And we can use it to help determine the levels of protection that we need to take throughout the day and precaution. The index starts at 0, which indicates absolutely no sunlight. And obviously, we only use that at night. And anything 11 or above indicates extreme radiation. So this means that some folks may possibly burn in even less than 10 minutes. But how quickly and how easily you burn depends on a number of different factors, such as your skin tone, your genetics, how well you are covered. And someone with pale and sensitive skin can even burn on a day with a UV index of just 1 if they're spending a lot of time outdoors, a few hours or more without any sun protection. However, if you are darker or you are tan, that doesn't mean you're safe as well. Darker skin tones are still at risk for developing skin cancers and premature aging, especially if extra precautions are not taken. The UV index chart provides some additional sun protection recommendations for the varying levels of UV. For a low level of 1 or 2, no extra protection is required, except for if you're outside for an extended amount of time or near reflective surfaces. And that's because UV rays can bounce off of surfaces like water, sand, and even snow. So that can increase your exposure. And UV rays can also penetrate clouds. So even on a cloudy day, even during winter time, you might still want to take extra precautions if you're going to be outside for a long time. Moderate levels on the UV index are between 3 and 5. And then high levels are between 6 and 7. So in both cases, you're going to be practicing the 5 S's, which we'll talk about in a moment. But they're slip-on clothing, slop on sunscreen, slap on a wide-brimmed hat, seek shade, especially during midday hours, and slide on sunglasses. Levels 8 through 10 are high levels of UV, and extreme levels are anything 11 or above. And in these conditions, we want to follow the 5 S's and take extra precautions as well. Best practice is to avoid being outside during midday hours of 10 to 4, seeking shade, wearing sunscreen, and wearing protective clothing. So now let's talk about the 5 S's as a strategy for sun protection. All of these recommendations are intended to be used together because any one recommendation alone doesn't provide enough sun protection. All right, so let's get into the 5 S's. The first one here is to slip on protective clothing to cover as much skin as possible. And so it does mean it's recommended to wear long sleeves and pants in the middle of summertime, especially if the UV index is really high. But you can look for lightweight fabrics, things that are close woven so it doesn't let light pass through. And if you can, wear shirts with collars. This can be especially helpful during long hikes or walks, playing golf, playing tennis, anywhere you're outside for a long period of time. Sometimes you can find clothes that have a UPF or ultraviolet protection factor, and it's like a SPF rating, but instead for sunscreen, it's for clothes. It's not something that you need because you can also use the close woven fabric that doesn't let in light, covering as much skin as possible. Next, we have every dermatologist's favorite skincare recommendation, which is to slap on sunscreen. Today's PSA, though, is that sunscreen alone is never enough to protect us from the sun. And so to use it in combination with all of the other recommendations, and know that sunscreen is a necessity for most of the year as well. At a minimum, use an SPF of 30, but you can go higher for a little bit more protection. We'll talk about that in just a moment as well. And look for a sunscreen that is broad spectrum. That means that it blocks against both UVA and UVB rays. And look for a water-resistant sunscreen, which is especially important during sweaty activities or for swimming. And then lastly, reapply every 2 hours. There are a ton of different sunscreens on the market, from lotions to sprays to sticks to gels. Whatever option feels good for you that you can use consistently is going to be the best sunscreen for you. Dermatologists recommend that the best sunscreen is going to be anyone that's comfortable for you to use on a daily basis. More about sunscreen. A few decades ago, a sun-kissed tan was part of the beauty standard. So you could find tanning oils and tanning beds and a whole bunch of products to speed up the tanning process. But now we know that tan skin is a sign of damaged skin, and it can increase risk for skin conditions like skin cancer. However, in a randomized controlled trial in Australia, they found that daily use of sunscreen reduced the incidence of melanoma skin cancer by 50%. And a Norwegian study found that using an SPF of 15 lowered melanoma risk by 30%. Other studies have shown that regular sunscreen use can also reduce the risk of other skin cancers and premature aging. Sunscreen here in America is an over-the-counter product, so it's FDA regulated, and the sunscreen ingredients have been extensively tested before approval. Maybe you noticed that early in June, the FDA had just approved a new sunscreen filter, and it's actually the first one that's been approved since 1999. So a lot of data goes into the approval process. The SPF in sunscreen stands for sun protection factor, and that is an indication of its ability to protect against UVB rays specifically. SPF 30 is the minimum recommendation to start off with, and that protects against about 97% of UVB rays, and SPF 30 protects up to 98%. So again, start at a minimum of SPF 30, but know that anything over 30 provides slightly more protection, but no sunscreen can block 100%. And again, look for a broad spectrum sunscreen because that will be protective against UVB and UVA rays. To achieve the SPF on the package, there needs to be technically, like utilized in research, 2 milligrams of sunscreen per square centimeter of skin. But in practical strategy, like what does that mean? It's a quarter of a teaspoon for the face, and maybe you've seen videos of dermatologists drawing 3 lines of sunscreen on 2 or 3 fingers, but that can depend on the sunscreen you have, how big the hole is that you're squeezing sunscreen out of. So you can also just use a teaspoon, 1/4 of a teaspoon, to get an idea of how much sunscreen to use on your face. And if it's a thin sunscreen, then you can always apply a layer, wait a few minutes for it to set, and then apply a second layer. For the body, the recommendation is to use 1 ounce of sunscreen for your whole body. This is about the size of 1 shot glass. For most effectiveness, apply sunscreen about 20 minutes before going outside. Cover all exposed skin, obviously, and remember that the back of the neck, ears, hair parts, lips, fingers, and toes are also exposed, and the back of your hands as well. After 2 hours, you do actually, in fact, need to reapply sunscreen, or sooner if you've gone swimming, if you've toweled off, or if you've been heavily sweating, even if you've used a water-resistant sunscreen. Actually, if you haven't been visibly sweating, you are always sweating. It's called imperceptible sweat. It just means that when you are sweating, it's evaporating off of you to cool your body before you notice that there's any moisture buildup. So the sunscreen can still slide and get patchy over time. And so that's why you still need to reapply every 2 hours. At a minimum, wear sunscreen on your face every day. You might even keep a spare bottle in your bag or at your desk for you to reapply before going out for a walk. But remember to get all of the exposed areas if you're spending time outside. Next, slap on a wide-brimmed hat. This is anything that's broad brimmed or a bucket style kind of hat or a sun hat, something that shades your face, your nose, your neck, your ears, because these are all common sites for skin cancers. Sun hats and bucket hats are great options because they provide the most coverage. If you're using a straw hat, one of those sun hats that have a very wide brim, those are great. Just make sure that the weave is close enough so that light doesn't pass through. Hats that are not recommended are those with small brims, ones like baseball caps or visors that shade just the face. Anything that is a loose weave, like straw hats that let light pass through, and hats that have a mesh or something vented, because all of these don't provide enough sun protection. The idea is to just get as much shade coverage as possible, especially on the face and the back of your neck. But if you get something with a super wide brim that also covers your shoulders, then you get bonus points. Next, it's for seeking shade and avoiding direct sunlight, especially in the harsh midday sun. So that's finding trees or shady structures or bringing your own tents and umbrellas. One of my tips for when you're walking around town and waiting at a stoplight, I like to use the stoplight pole and just find that little sliver of shade to stand while I wait for the light to change. You do what you can with what you have. So finding trees, shady structures, and bringing your own tents and umbrellas if you're going to be hanging out at the park or the beach. And this is important because shade reduces UV radiation, but it can also still reach you through reflection of water, sand, and glass. So again, using shade in combination with other sun protective measures. UV rays can also penetrate clouds. So again, that might lead to sunburn if you are spending a lot of times outdoors on a cloudy day, even if you feel like the clouds are providing shade kind of. And UVA rays can also penetrate windows. So be mindful of shade indoors, and you might even wear sunscreen even if you're not leaving the house. Finally, the last S is to slide on sunglasses, those that have lenses with UV protection. Prolonged, unprotected sunlight exposure can lead to cataracts, which is a clouding of the lens of the eye. So vision starts to get blurry, and possibly other eye conditions can develop as well. The sunglasses should be close fitting and in a wraparound style, and that is to block out light from all of the sides. The lenses are curved to block not only the front of your eyes, but the sides of them as well. As an example, many sports sunglasses, like the one pictured, follow this recommendation. Sunglasses that have just the flat lenses that have gaps along the sides don't provide enough protection. Lenses that have UV protection is also a necessity as well, because these will filter out the UV rays before they reach your eyes. And together, sunglasses and a broad-brimmed hat can reduce UV radiation exposure to the eyes by up to 98%. So that is another indication of how impactful adding all of these recommendations together can be. Having one protection measure alone does help, and then combining it with other ones can be so impactful. They add up. If you want to get more information on your eyes and your eye health, then you can visit your optometrist and they'll take a look for you. So, quick question. Which of the 5 S's are you best at practicing? I think for me, wearing sun protective clothing, because I like to take walks during my lunch hour. So I try to always have a long sleeve kind of summer shirt so that my arms are protected. but I do just have a visor, so I can do a little bit more in the broad brimmed hat area. Yeah, sometimes our fashionable style sense doesn't completely align with these all the time. That means that we can try more options and figure out what works best. All right, exercising in the sun. So when it comes to the summertime, when it's hot, timing can be one of the most important factors. UV exposure is typically the highest between 10 and 4 p.m., and it's usually the hottest between noon and 3 p.m. So it's best to keep exercise indoors. Of course, if you are running or doing something outdoors, avoiding any strenuous sort of activities during those peak hours. Hydration is important, so drinking water before, during, and after physical activity, your body functions most optimally physically and mentally when you're hydrated. And in states of dehydration, that decreases the functionality of your heart, your lungs, and your mind. And we need all of those for top performance in physical activities, no matter what the intensity level is. As for hydration, start hydrating a few hours before the activity. Bring a water bottle, or if you're going a long route, planning water stops. If you are in a location that has many consecutive days of heat, it's especially important to consistently stay hydrated because dehydration can add up over a course of a few days. As for electrolytes, they are a necessity for any physical activity because our sodium levels do drop through sweat. Most Americans do get enough electrolytes through food, but for heavy sweating and intense exercise sessions, you can also use sports drinks or sprinkle in a little bit of extra salt to your water. The American College of Sports Medicine doesn't specifically recommend commercial electrolyte products, but eating food that has sodium is just as effective as those commercial products, which are majority salt. Next, if you are outside, remember to dress for extra protection like we've been talking about. So lightweight, something loose fitting, breathable, so it helps sweat evaporate better. Moisture wicking fabric is nice to have, and UPF fabrics are also nice to have, but not necessary. Again, wearing sunglasses, sweat-resistant sunscreens, and a hat if possible. But I do know that some activities are not super conducive to a wide-brimmed hat, but it's something definitely to keep in mind. Then, of course, listen to your body, take breaks in the shade, drink water before you're thirsty, because the more dehydrated you are, that's going to increase your thirst level as well. This goes for if you're just hanging out outdoors as well, not necessarily only for strenuous exercise. With hot weather, do know that activity can mean that your body needs to adjust to the increased temperatures and to increased humidity levels. The effort or intensity level that you feel on a typical basis might be a little bit more intense with additional heat and humidity. So if you need to, do take extra breaks, do dial down the intensity if you feel like you need to, and both of those measures are completely normal. When you are doing activities, if you can, buddy up. You can find yourself a workout partner or an accountability buddy that you can team up with so it can give you a boost of motivation and make the experience more fun. Working out with someone can be a social activity. It can help reduce more stress and improve your mood more than just doing an exercise alone, in addition to that added level of safety. And then lastly, check in with your doctor. Certain health conditions and certain medications can change your body's reaction to heat. and to cooling. So checking in before you make any huge changes. But even if we are taking all the precautions, sometimes it just so happens that you might get a sunburn. Hopefully it's mild, but let's take a look at some first aid best practices.
Sunburns can be painful and damaging to your skin. You can get a sunburn after too much unprotected time in the sun, no matter your skin tone. The first step to treat sunburn is to get indoors and out of the sun. Once indoors, follow these tips from board-certified dermatologists to relieve your sunburn. Take cool baths or showers to help relieve any pain. Afterward, gently pat your skin dry. Soothe the painful sunburn by applying moisturizer containing aloe vera or soy while your skin is still damp and whenever you feel discomfort. You can also apply calamine lotion, place a cool damp washcloth on the affected area, or take a colloidal oatmeal bath. Take aspirin or ibuprofen to help reduce swelling and discomfort from your sunburn. Drink extra water, as having a sunburn can make you dehydrated. Do not pop blisters. Blisters mean you have a second-degree sunburn. Allowing blisters to heal instead of popping them protects you from infection. Apply petroleum jelly to blisters to protect them while they heal. To protect your skin from future sunburns and reduce your risk of skin cancer and premature skin aging, seek shade and wear sun protective clothing, such as long sleeves, pants, a wide-brimmed hat, and sunglasses with UV protection. Apply a broad-spectrum water-resistant sunscreen with an SPF of 30 or higher to all skin not covered by clothing. If your sunburn gets worse, partner with the sun protection expert, a board-certified dermatologist.
All right. If there is a large area of the skin that is badly sunburned or has a lot of intense blistering, then it is important to seek medical attention and be sure to stay well hydrated because your body's skin barrier has been compromised, and so you'll be losing more water, and additionally, it helps the healing process. Next, there are heat-related illnesses that can occur, especially if folks are not thinking to rest or to drink enough fluids, especially in outdoor activities, exercising, or playing sports. Heat cramps are a painful muscle cramp or spasms from intense activity in the heat. So if someone is experiencing that, move them to a cool place, have them rest, remove any extra clothing to help them cool down, and drink a sports drink that has salt and sugar. Next, heat exhaustion is more serious, and it occurs when the body loses too much water and too much salt, and it can't cool itself down properly. So symptoms include muscle cramps, pale and moist skin, fever above 100.4 Fahrenheit, nausea, vomiting, headache, fatigue, weakness, anxiety, and feeling faint. So feeling very unwell. First aid includes the same cooling processes as was mentioned before, but if symptoms don't improve or the person can't drink fluids, then seek medical care because they might need an IV. Heat stroke is the most dangerous heat-related illness, and it is a life-threatening emergency. The body's temperature system becomes overwhelmed by excessive heat, and symptoms include hot, dry skin, a fever above 104 Fahrenheit, a rapid heart rate, confusion, agitation, lethargy, seizures, and can even result in coma. If heat stroke is suspected, call 911 immediately. And while waiting for help to arrive, move them to a cooler area, remove any excess clothing, cool the skin with water and fans, place ice packs on the armpit and groin areas, and provide cool fluids if the person is able to drink and also alert. The best ways to reduce risk of heat-related illnesses is to take breaks from activities, to stay hydrated, to seek shade, and even go hang out in an air-conditioned room if possible. And so remembering to check in and do those things, especially if everyone is out having a great time, because we can all have too much fun, and remembering to check in with your body from time to time. So take extra precautions if you know that you'll be outdoors. Now, more things about outdoors specifically. Different environmental conditions outside can greatly impact your body's cooling system. Temperatures that are above 98 degrees Fahrenheit makes it harder for your body to cool down because it's about your own internal body temperature. Humidity can also make it difficult for sweat to evaporate and cool your body. And then UV index indicates your UV exposure, which can be associated with high heat levels. So be sure to check that when you want to be outside. But if you are inside and you don't have AC and the space is really hot, then consider taking a visit to the mall, even if you're not a big shopper, or even a movie theater or your local libraries. They have AC as well, and you can hang out there until the temperatures start to drop. I used to work at a mall, and it was really cool to watch the regular mall walkers. That was their summertime activity. So taking laps around the floor, getting in your steps, and even seeing readers hanging out in the larger sitting areas too. So it is a thing to go hang out at the mall during the summertime. So I'm interested, are there any summertime events or activities that you look forward to? Maybe you host barbecues or visiting the beach. And especially if you are close enough, you can visit the beach in the afternoon or take a walk along the coast for a sunset. And it's typically a lot less crowded, especially since so many folks come to Santa Cruz to spend their summertime here. And if you wanted to, and you can also throw it in the chat. So for our outdoor activity tips, the American Red Cross has a bunch of pages with advice for safe summer activities. But some key points here: to practice extra caution around your grills, open flames, keep them out in the open away from your house because sparks can fly and catch things on fire. When you are going out for picnics or hikes, also bring a first aid kit and hand sanitizer. Sometimes locations may not have hand washing stations, so you want to make sure that you can sanitize your hands, especially if you need to be addressing any scrapes, bumps, or bruises. Bring ice coolers when you are going out for your beach days and your picnics to keep perishable foods at safe temperatures, and also seek shade for those coolers as well. Don't leave them out in the sun. And as for cooking, bring different utensils to avoid cross-contamination. So those will be separate ones for uncooked meats, uncooked produce, and ones for serving cooked foods and ready-to-eat foods. And since the 4th of July is coming up, do double check your local laws and safety precautions if you are going to be using fireworks. But the safest way to enjoy fireworks in person is at a public show put on by professionals and standing at least 500 feet away. So this is one of my top tips. I have had neighbors in the house behind the fence to my parents that caught their bush on fire from using personal fireworks. So luckily, the fire department came very quickly, but they are quite busy around 4th of July time. And summertime vegetation is typically dry, so safety around flames is number one. Next, we have the beach post work, and I know some of us are excited to take a visit throughout the summer too. So for swimming, swim at beaches with a lifeguard present, swim at pools with the lifeguard present as well, and designate someone in your group as a water watcher so everyone can keep an eye on each other. Wear a life jacket for those who are on boats, children, or swimmers that are less experienced. And if you want to get trained in CPR, you can look up local Red Cross trainings, or you can be on the lookout for our faculty and staff health and well-being newsletter because we will announce Red Cross CPR trainings that we provide through risk services at the Scotts Valley Center. So for hiking is actually really good for lowering stress levels and good for our soul. So a big fan of hiking here, and we have the beautiful redwoods just minutes from the beach as well. Don't take chances and stay on the paths. Protect yourself from pests like mosquitoes and ticks. Pests also live in nature as well, so we can deter those with repellents, wearing light colors so that you can better see them if they're on your body, and then protecting your skin by wearing long sleeves and tucking your pants into your socks for high risk areas. If you're someone who bugs find extra tasty, avoid going outdoors during dusk and dawn because they tend to be the most active at those times. All right, now a quick word on nutrition because I can't help myself, but also because nutrition is very impactful. Nourish your body with beautiful summer produce, and we are in the perfect area to experience that. And the reason why this is especially important is because the sun can cause damage in the technical form of oxidative stress. And so to neutralize that stress, it's important to eat a diet that is high in antioxidants. You can find those abundantly in dark leafy green vegetables, really colorful vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, and whole grains, primarily plant foods. And fruits and veggies that are in season typically have the best nutrient and antioxidant content. If it is in season, it's probably more affordable as well, and typically travels fewer food miles to reach you. So shopping for summer produce, some delicious ideas to look out for are cherries, figs, tomatoes, watermelon, avocado, kale, peppers, herbs. You might make an herb salad with heirloom tomatoes, watermelon, and walnuts. Super delicious. Or doing a green smoothie with mango, orange, spinach, and chia seeds. And if you don't want any food waste, you can always reach for frozen produce as well, because frozen produce is processed shortly after harvesting. That preserves most of the nutrition at peak ripeness, as well as the antioxidant content as well. We need high antioxidant consumption for many health benefits additionally too, but eating antioxidant rich foods is not a replacement for sunscreen use and the 5 S's. Vitamin D is an essential vitamin that we do get through sun as well. It's important for bone health, immune health, metabolic health, and even mental health. So in that way, the sun can be really important to our health and well-being as well. But again, the caveat is that vitamin D production depends on the person, it depends on complexion, genetics, the amount of skin exposed. So the Skin Cancer Foundation's recommendation is that we get vitamin D from foods as much as possible to avoid that UV exposure damage. So foods that are high in vitamin D include fatty fish, fortified cereals, dairy, soy, and eggs, to name a few. And the main takeaway here is that we need to be eating foods that are high in nutrition, high in fiber, high in antioxidants, because being in the sun, being in hot weather, it means that your body is working extra and your immune system is working extra to keep you healthy, reduce that oxidative stress damage. So treat yourself to some amazing summer produce that this area has to offer. Thank you so much for being here. And if you have any questions, you can absolutely email me. And I hope you have a great rest of your day and stay safe.